And we're going to go ahead and work with kites. Our first example is MATH is a kite. TH is 15. AT is 4x minus 9. We have the measure of THS as being 63 degrees and SAM is 32 degrees. Now this is a kite. Before we get to figure out x and the measure of MAT, we need to figure out the properties that a kite has. So let's take red for example, and we're going to work with what congruent angles we have in a kite. And if you remember the properties, this angle over here, so MAT, is actually congruent with MHT, so I'm going to mark them as congruent. In blue, we're going to mark congruent sides. We know that AM is congruent with MH, and we also know that AT, so we mark them two lines here, is congruent with TH, so we mark two lines over here. Okay, now with that said, diagonals of course are perpendicular. That's an ugly side. Okay, all the way down. All right, so now with that said, let's take a look at what we have. First, we want to find x. So if I'm looking where x is located, we figure out that AT is actually congruent with TH. So that means 4x minus 9 has to equal 15. So that's going to be actually my first equation. So in order for me to find a two-step equation, I'm going to have to get rid of the negative 9. So I would add 9 to both sides. Okay, a little bit more. Add 9 to both sides, which means this right here is going to go away. And I'm going to have 4x equals, and 15 with 9 is going to be 24. Now, of course, 4 and x is being multiplied together, so in order for me to solve for x, I would divide by 4, and my answer would be altogether 6. So in this simple way, I figured out what x is. They didn't ask me to find what AT is, but of course I already know. If TH is 15, then the whole thing has to be 15. And in order for me to double check my work, I can take the 6, I can plug it in right here and figure out if that's 15. So I go 6 times 4 is 24 minus 9, that will give me 15. So that means my work is correct. Alright, so I figure out x. Now I have to figure out what MAT is. Now if I'm looking back at this example here, I labeled angle A and angle H as congruent, but then I have two parts to it. Now if they're congruent and part of it is 32 and the other part is 63, all I have to do is actually add it together. So what I'm gonna do here, on the side I'm gonna go 32 plus 63 is going to give me the measure for the angle MAT. So in any case, when I add 32 with 63, I get a 95 degrees. 95 degrees has to equal the measure of angle MAT. And I am done with this problem. Okay, let's go ahead and work on the other problem. The second problem says MATH is a kite again. I have the angle AMH equaling 55 degrees and ATH 17 degrees. Okay, now of course those are congruent. In a kite we have one pair of congruent angles, and A and H are congruent. So all I need to say, if I'm looking at what I need to find, is I do have to find both of those. So what I'm gonna do is, let's label this X. And I label both X's because they are congruent. So if one is X, then the other one has to equal X. So let's see what we have when we type our equation. So before I do anything, I should probably say that the sum of all angles in a kite or in a quadrilateral equals, and I hope you said 360 degrees. So I'm going to say sum of all interior angles in a kite equals 360 degrees. I'll put that in a side. Okay, now with that said, let's write our equation. So 55 degrees plus x plus 17 plus another x has to equal a total of 360. Now, of course, we're going to look at like terms. So x's are definitely like terms, but also 55 and 17, I can add those two together. So what I'm going to have is going to be x plus x will give me 2x's, plus 55 plus 17 will give me 72. So I'm going to write 72 has to equal 360. Just like in a regular equation, I have to get rid of the 72, so I'm going to have to subtract 72 on both sides. Okay, now what that's going to do, and let's type this up, is going to be 2x has to equal 288. Now this is fairly easy. We're going to divide by 2, both sides. And that's going to give me an x of x equals 144. Okay, and that is my answer for x. So when they ask me to find the measure of MAT, which is x, and MHT, which is also x, then my answer would simply be 144 degrees. And I'm going to have to type this again. So instead of doing it, I'm just going to clone it. And I'm going to say that both of those are 144 degrees. And we are done.